The distress beacon had been pinging for exactly 173 standard cycles when Commander Vex finally got authorization to investigate. 173 cycles, that is roughly 6 of those weird Earth months the humans were always complaining about. Now I have been doing search and rescue operations for the Galactic Federation for almost 2 decades, and let me tell you something. When a distress beacon goes silent after the first few weeks, you are usually looking at a recovery mission, not a rescue. Bodies, not survivors. Wreckage, not hope. But this beacon, this stubborn little human beacon, kept right on singing its mechanical song across the void, cheerful as anything, like it did not have a care in the universe. Vex, are you sure you want to take this one? I second in command, a cautious Threxian named Coley, asked as we prepared the jump. 6 months on that planet. The atmosphere readings are barely compatible. High radiation zones, predators that register as Class 4 threats. No civilization, no resources. I waved one of my primary appendages in dismissal. The beacon is still active. That means power. Power means someone might be alive. Coley made that clicking sound with his mandibles that meant he thought I was being optimistic to the point of stupidity. Or it means the beacon is solar-powered and sitting next to corpses. You know what? He had a point. But something about this particular distress call bothered me. The ship that had gone down was the Meridian, a small human transport vessel carrying 8 crew members on a routine mapping expedition. Human. Those bizarre, squishy, endlessly adaptable primates who had burst onto the galactic stage about 50 standard years ago and had been causing chaos ever since. The Federation still had not quite figured out what to make of them. We dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, and there it was, Viridian 5. A green and blue marble of a planet, looking deceptively peaceful from orbit. Class M world, as the humans called it. Breathable atmosphere, liquid water, abundant life. Also, according to the surveys, home to approximately 17 different species that would happily make a meal out of any unfortunate visitor. Running scans now, Coley announced, his 3 eyes fixed on the instruments. I am picking up the beacon signal. Coordinates are... Wait, that cannot be right. What cannot be right? The beacon is coming from a valley on the western continent, but I am also reading structures, multiple structures, power signatures, heat signatures, a lot of movement. I leaned forward, my interest thoroughly piqued. Life signs? Affirmative. I count, hold on, 8 human biosignatures, all alive, all healthy by the looks of it. Coley paused, and his mandibles did that clicking thing again. Commander, I am also reading approximately 47 other life forms in the immediate vicinity, various species. The strange part is none of them are attacking each other. A settlement, I suggested, on a planet they crashed on 6 months ago. Coley's tone was pure skepticism. Commander, humans are resourceful, but building a settlement in 6 months on a hostile world is... Impossible is not really a word in the human vocabulary, I reminded him. Take us down, I want to see this for myself. The landing site was about 2 kilometers from the beacon's location. Standard procedure. You do not land right on top of a distress signal until you know what you are dealing with. Could be a trap, could be a disease outbreak, could be any number of things that make a direct landing a spectacularly bad idea. We suited up, grabbed our emergency medical kits and defensive equipment, and headed out. The planet's sun was bright, almost harsh, and the air had that peculiar smell of growing things that always made me slightly uncomfortable. I am a void dweller by preference. Give me the clean, recycled air of a ship any day. The terrain was rough. Lots of vegetation. Trees that stretched up toward the sky like they were trying to escape the ground. We heard animal calls in the distance. Saw things moving in the underbrush. My species has excellent hearing, and I could pick up at least a dozen different creatures tracking our progress. Stay alert, I ordered Coley and the other 2 crew members who had accompanied us. We are being watched. When are we not being watched on these death worlds? Coley muttered, but he kept his weapon ready. We crested a ridge, and that is when we saw it. That is when everything I thought I knew about crash survival went straight out the nearest airlock. There, in the valley below, was... Well, calling it a settlement seemed inadequate. There was the crashed ship, the Meridian, its hull partially torn open but clearly being used as some kind of primary structure. Around it, someone had built additional buildings. Not fancy, mostly wood and salvaged metal, but solid, functional, protected by a perimeter fence that looked sturdy enough to keep out the local predators. And in the center of this little compound, I kid you not, there was a building with a hand-painted sign that read, in bright, cheerful letters, "The Last Stop Cafe, best coffee in the sector." I stared at that sign for a good 10 seconds before I could form words. Coley, are you seeing what I am seeing? If you are seeing a cafe, then yes, Commander. I am questioning my optical organs. But yes. We started down the ridge, moving cautiously. That is when the real surprise hit us. A creature emerged from the tree line to our left. It was massive, easily 2.5 meters at the shoulder, with fur that shimmered between gray and silver, powerful limbs, and a mouthful of teeth that could probably bite through hull plating. According to the survey data, this was a Kragath, one of the apex predators on Viridian 5. Territorial, aggressive, known to attack anything that moves. I raised my weapon. Kala did the same. The 2 crew members with us took defensive positions. The Kragath looked at us, tilted its enormous head, and then did something that made my brain briefly shut down. It wagged its tail. Not like a threat display, like a greeting, like it was happy to see us. Then a voice called out from the compound, "Brutus, get back here. We have got visitors, and you are going to scare them." Brutus. They had named the apex predator Brutus. The Kragath, this creature of teeth and claws and violence, turned around and trotted back toward the compound like an obedient pet, like someone had called their dog in for dinner. A human emerged from the main building. Female, probably in her 30s by human aging standards, dark skin, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She was wiping her hands on an apron, an actual apron, like this was some kind of restaurant back on a civilized world. "Sorry about that," she called out. "Brutus is friendly, I promise. Are you the rescue team?" I lowered my weapon slowly. Very slowly. My brain was still trying to process what it had just witnessed. "I am Commander Vex of the Federation rescue vessel Stalwart. Are you from the Meridian?" "Sure am. Lieutenant Maya Torres, second in command. Well, I guess technically I am in command now, since Captain Harris decided he likes farming better than flying." She grinned, and there was something almost manic about that smile, the kind of smile that said she had seen things, dealt with things, and had come out the other side with her sense of humor intact but definitely altered. We approached the compound carefully. The gate swung open, and Maya gestured us inside with the casual hospitality of someone inviting friends over for dinner, not greeting a rescue team after 6 months stranded on a hostile alien world. The interior of the compound was even more baffling than the exterior. There were gardens, actual, honest-to-goodness gardens with neat rows of plants, some earth vegetables that must have been grown from emergency seed supplies, some local plants that had been clearly cultivated. There was a water collection system, filtration tanks, and what looked like a solar power array built from salvaged ship components. And there were animals. Everywhere. Brutus, the Kragath, was lying in a sunny spot near the cafe, gnawing on what looked like a massive bone. 2 smaller creatures, which I recognized as skitterers, fast-moving pack hunters that usually attacked in coordinated groups, were playing some kind of game with what appeared to be a ball made of woven grass. One of them would pounce on the ball, the other would try to steal it, and they would tumble around like earth kittens. And sitting on a perch near the cafe entrance was a glide serpent. Now glide serpents are venomous, highly venomous. Their poison can drop a full-grown Threxian in under 30 seconds. This particular serpent had bright blue and green scales, and was wearing, I am not making this up, a tiny collar with a bell on it. "Welcome to our little slice of paradise," Maya said, still grinning. "Can I get you some coffee? We have been perfecting our brewing technique, and I have got to say, desperation really does sharpen your skills." Coley made a strangled sound. "You domesticated 3 local predator species and opened a cafe." "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds weird," Maya replied. "But yeah, basically, come on in. The others will want to meet you. We have been placing bets on when rescue would show up. I had money on month 7, so you guys are early. Thanks for that, by the way." The interior of the cafe was warm, smelled like coffee and something baking, and had actual tables and chairs. Mismatched, clearly built from whatever materials were available, but functional. There were decorations on the walls, pictures, a calendar marking off the days, a bulletin board with notes and schedules. This was not a survival camp. This was a home. 6 other humans emerged from various parts of the compound. They all looked healthy, fit, tanned from the sun. Not like people who had been fighting for survival every single day for 6 months. "Rescue is here," Maya announced. "Everyone, this is Commander Vex and his team." A tall man with graying hair and smile lines around his eyes stepped forward. "Captain Roger Harris. Former captain, I should say. These days I mostly focus on agriculture and animal husbandry." "Good to see you, Commander." "Animal husbandry," I repeated because my brain was still struggling to catch up with reality. "You mean the predators?" "Oh, Brutus and the twins. Yeah, they are sweethearts once you get to know them. And Priscilla, our glide serpent, she is basically a scaly cat. Lazy, likes warm spots, occasionally brings us dead things as presents." A younger human, maybe mid-20s, bounced over with the kind of energy that suggested he had been drinking that coffee. Maya mentioned, "Dude, you should have seen the first month. It was intense. We crashed. Right? Ship is toast. Half our supplies are scattered across 3 square kilometers. We have got predators circling like we are an all-you-can-eat buffet. And then Tommy is our engineer. Tommy is like, what if we try to make friends with them?" "Making friends seemed preferable to being eaten," a quieter voice added. A woman with red hair and glasses, presumably the engineer. I noticed the Kragoth behavior patterns were similar to Earth canines. Pack structure, territorial but social. So, I started leaving food scraps outside the perimeter. Took 3 weeks before Brutus stopped trying to eat us and started accepting treats, Maya added. Another 2 weeks before he let us touch him. Now he is basically our guard dog. Early warning system and occasionally helps with heavy lifting. I looked around at these humans, these impossible, ridiculous humans, and I felt something between admiration and complete bewilderment. "You have been here for 6 months? 6 months on a hostile world. And you opened a cafe." An older woman, probably in her 50s, stepped forward. She had flour on her hands and a smudge on her cheek. "Morale is important, Commander. I am Dr. Lisa Park, medical officer. After the first month, once we established basic safety protocols and food supplies, we needed something to maintain psychological health, routine, purpose. Something beyond mere survival. The cafe idea was actually my suggestion. We take turns running it," Meyer explained. "Gives us structure. Plus, the baked goods help with trade." "Trade?" Cola's voice had gone up an octave. "Trade with whom?"
"The quillfin," Harris said, like this was the most normal thing in the universe. "Indigenous species. Semi-nomadic. They live about 20 kilometers east. We made contact in month 2, bit of a rocky start. They thought we were invading. But once we established communication and showed them we were not interested in their territory, they warmed up. They trade us local grains and fibers. We trade them baked goods and help with tool repairs." I sat down at one of the mismatched chairs. I needed to sit down, this was too much. "You made first contact with an indigenous species and established trade relations. Technically, we are not supposed to do that without Federation approval," Maya admitted. "But we figured, survival first, bureaucracy later. They are good people. Well, good beings. Very family-oriented. Love sweet pastries. Their leader, someone we call Big Ears because we cannot quite pronounce his actual name, he comes by every few days. He is teaching us their language," the young, energetic human added. "I am Marcus, by the way. Navigator. Well, former navigator. Current animal trainer and part-time baker." "How?" I finally asked. "How did you do all this?" Harris pulled up a chair and sat across from me. "Commander, when you crash on a hostile world with minimal supplies and no guarantee of rescue, you have 2 choices. You can give up and wait to die, or you can decide that if you are going to be stuck somewhere, you might as well make it livable." We chose option 2. "We are humans," Maya added with that slightly manic grin. "We do not do well with just surviving. We need to thrive. It is kind of our thing." Dr. Park brought over a tray with cups of coffee. Real coffee. Steaming and aromatic. "Here, you came a long way. Least we can do is offer refreshments." I took the cup. Sipped. It was actually good coffee. Possibly the best coffee I had ever tasted, and I have been to 17 different systems. "The secret is in the water filtration," Park said, noticing my expression.
And we found a local plant that when roasted has properties similar to cinnamon. Adds a nice touch. Kala was standing near the door, his weapon now lowered but still clearly on edge. One of the skitterers had approached him and was sniffing his leg curiously. "Commander, what do we do? Our mission was to rescue survivors. But they are not really in need of rescue. They have a settlement, domesticated predators, a cafe, trade relations with locals. We still want to go home," Harris said quickly. "Do not get me wrong, Commander. This place is nice enough, and we have made it work, but we all have families, lives, careers. We would very much appreciate that ride off this rock. But we are not desperate," Maya added. "We proved we could survive here indefinitely if we had to. We have got food production, water, shelter, and enough entertainment to keep from going insane. The cafe helps. Turns out serving coffee and pastries to your crewmates is surprisingly therapeutic." Marcus picked up one of the skitterers, which curled into his arms like a house cat. "Plus, we are kind of going to miss these guys. Do you think Federation quarantine will let us bring them? I have gotten really attached to mischief and mayhem here." "The skitterers are named Mischief and Mayhem," I said flatly. "Well, they are mischievous and cause mayhem, so yeah," Marcus replied, completely serious. I drank more of the coffee. It helped. Not much, but it helped. "I need to contact my ship, make a full report. This is going to require some explanations." "Take your time," Harris said. "We are not going anywhere. Though if you could hurry it up a bit, I do have a daughter graduating from university in 3 months, and I would really like make that." As I stood to go outside and make the call, Brutus the Kragoth lumbered over and sat next to Maya. She scratched behind his ears absent-mindedly. He made a rumbling sound that might have been contentment. A Kragoth, purring, like a 3-ton murder machine, had turned into a lapdog. "Commander," Maya called as I reached the door, "before you file that report, you should probably see the rest of the compound. We have got some other projects going. Might as well give you the full tour." I was almost afraid to ask, "What other projects?" "Well, we started experimenting with hydroponics in month 4. Got a pretty decent setup going. And Tommy figured out how to convert one of the ship's engines into a generator that runs on local biofuel. Oh, and we have been mapping the region, cataloging species, doing some geological surveys, academic stuff. Really, but we figured if we were here anyway, might as well contribute to the Federation's scientific database." "You have been conducting scientific research," I said. "Peer review is going to be interesting when we get back," Dr. Park noted. "Especially the papers on rapid domestication techniques for Class 4 predators." I stepped outside. The sun was still bright. The air still smelled like growing things. Brutus followed me out, gave me a curious look, then wandered off to lie down in his sunny spot again. Coley joined me. "Commander, this is the strangest rescue mission I have ever been on." "You and me both," I replied. I activated my communicator, Vex to Stalwart. "Stalwart here. Status, Commander? All 8 survivors located and confirmed healthy. Situation complicated. I need to speak with Federation Command. Might be here for a while." "Understood. Any immediate medical emergencies?" I looked back at the cafe. Through the window I could see the humans inside, laughing about something. Maya was serving more coffee. One of them was showing Cully the proper way to pet a skitterer without startling it. "Negative," I said. "No medical emergencies, but I am going to need psych evals on all of them. Not because they are traumatized, because I need someone to explain to me how any of this is possible." "Say again, Commander." "The humans domesticated 3 local predator species and opened a cafe," I said. "They have trade relations with indigenous people. They are conducting scientific research. They are fine. They are more than fine. They are thriving." There was a long pause on the other end. "Commander, are you feeling well? Do you need medical attention?" "I am fine. The humans are fine. Everything is fine and also completely insane. I will file a full report within the hour." Vex out. I turned off the communicator and looked at Kale. "We are going to be here for a few days while Command figures out what to do with this situation. Might as well get comfortable." "The humans offered to let us stay in their guest quarters," Koei said. "Apparently they built extra housing in month 5 for visitors. They built guest quarters. They were optimistic about either rescue or the Quilfin wanting to do overnight cultural exchanges." I pinched the bridge of my nose. right between my primary optical organs. Of course they were. From inside the cafe I heard laughter. Human laughter, warm and genuine and alive. The kind of sound you do not expect to hear from people who have been stranded on a hostile world for half a standard year. But then again, these were humans. And if there was one thing I was learning, one thing the entire galaxy was slowly learning, it was this. You do not strand humans somewhere and expect them to just survive. You strand humans somewhere and 6 months later they have rebuilt civilization, made friends with the local predators, and opened a cafe. Because apparently, that is just what humans do. The tour started after breakfast. Yes, breakfast. Because apparently when you are stranded on a death world, you still maintain regular meal schedules. Dr. Park insisted we eat before seeing the rest of the compound. And I was not about to argue with a human medical officer who had somehow kept her entire crew healthy for 6 months without proper Federation supplies. The food was surprisingly good. Some kind of grain porridge made from local plants, mixed with preserved fruit from the ship's stores and sweetened with something they called honey that came from insects. Do not ask me about the insects. I decided I did not want to know. All right, Maya said, finishing her coffee and standing up. Let me show you what we have been up to. Fair warning, Commander, some of it might seem a bit excessive. More excessive than the cafe? I asked. Different kind of excessive, she replied with that grin. We walked through the compound, and I started to understand the full scope of what these humans had built. It was not just survival, it was infrastructure, planning, long-term thinking that went way beyond waiting for rescue. The hydroponics bay was housed in a section of the ship that had remained mostly intact. Tommy, the engineer, had rigged up a system using salvaged pipes, ship lighting, and a filtration system that pulled minerals from the local soil. Rows of plants grew in neat, organized lines, earth vegetables mostly, but also some local species they had been experimenting with. We started this in month 3, Tommy explained. He was a stocky man with permanent grease stains on his hands and the kind of focused energy that engineers get when they are solving problems. Realized pretty quickly that relying entirely on foraged food was not sustainable. Too unpredictable, too dangerous. So we decided to bring the food to us. How did you know which local plants were safe to eat? Coley asked, his scientific curiosity apparently overriding his bewilderment. Trial and error, Dr. Park said cheerfully. Very careful trial and error. I ran toxicity tests on everything. Started with tiny amounts, monitored for reactions, built up from there, lost a few test subjects along the way. I must have looked alarmed because she quickly added, plant test subjects. We used the biological analysis kit from the medical bay. No humans were harmed in the making of this garden. Marcus appeared from behind a row of tall plants that looked like purple corn. Dude, you have got to try the tubers we found. They taste like potatoes. But with this weird spicy kick, we have been calling them kick-taters. Not very creative, but it stuck. Kick-taters, I repeated. The galaxy was never going to take humanity seriously if they kept naming things like this. Wait until you hear what we call the flying things that tried to nest in the water tank, Maya said. We call them screech devils, because they screech and they are devils. Are the screech devils also domesticated? I asked, dreading the answer. No, those things are mean. We just keep them away with sonic deterrence. Not everything can be friends, Commander. We learned that the hard way. The tour continued. They showed us the workshop where Tommy had set up a forge, an actual working forge, using salvaged metal and local stone. They were making tools, replacement parts, and even weapons for trade with the Quilthan. The Quilthan have great artistic sense but limited metallurgy, Harris explained, picking up a knife with an elegantly curved blade. We trade them metal goods. They trade us textiles and information about the planet. Mutually beneficial arrangement. You are conducting interspecies commerce without Federation oversight, I pointed out, trying to sound official even though part of me was deeply impressed. Are you going to report us? Maya asked, raising an eyebrow. I am going to report everything, I said. What they do with that information is above my pay grade. But between you and me, you probably just saved the Federation about 5 years of costly survey visits and first contact protocols. We moved on to what they called the library. It was a small building, constructed from wood and salvaged hull plating with actual shelves, books, data pads, and handwritten journals lined the walls. We have been keeping detailed records of everything. A quiet man named David spoke up. He had barely said 2 words during breakfast, but now his eyes lit up with scholarly enthusiasm. Botanical observations, animal behavior patterns, geological surveys, atmospheric readings, also personal journals. Figured if we were going to be here a while, might as well document it properly. David was our communications officer, Harris said. Turns out he has a background in xenobiology, been doing excellent work cataloging local species. David showed us a journal filled with detailed sketches and notes. The drawings were good, really good, showing various creatures in different poses and environments. This one is particularly interesting, he said, pointing to a drawing of something that looked like a 6-legged deer. They migrate through this valley twice a year, completely peaceful herbivores. The quillfin hunt them sustainably, only taking what they need. We have been learning their techniques. You are learning indigenous hunting methods, Cole said. His mandibles were clicking non-stop now. I think his brain was overloading. Cultural exchange goes both ways, David replied. They teach us about the planet. We teach them about the galaxy. They are fascinated by the concept of space travel. We have been doing weekly education sessions. You are teaching them about space travel, I said. This was getting better and better. The Federation is going to have so many questions. We figured they would find out eventually anyway, Maya said with a shrug. Better they learn from us in a controlled setting than from some random merchant ship that might not have their best interests at heart. She had a point. A frustrating, difficult to argue with point. The next stop was the animal enclosure. It was a large fenced area where Brutus spent most of his time when he was not lounging near the cafe. Inside there were toys. Large, heavy-duty toys made from logs and woven vines. There was a pool of water, several shaded areas, and what looked like an obstacle course. Enrichment is important, Marcus explained, climbing over the fence with the kind of casual fearlessness that made my survival instincts scream. Brutus is smart. Like really smart. He gets bed easily, so we built him entertainment. Brutus lumbered over and bumped his massive head against Marcus, nearly knocking him over. The human laughed and scratched the creature behind his ear ridges. Good boy. Yes, you are a good boy. Who is the best apex predator? You are. The Kragoth made that rumbling purr sound again. I still could not believe what I was seeing. How? I asked. How did you turn one of the most dangerous predators on this planet into a pet? Patience, food, and respect for boundaries, Maya answered. First month was rough. We had to establish that we were not prey but also not a threat. We studied his behavior, learned his body language, figured out what he liked and did not like, built trust slowly. He saved our lives in month 4, Harris added. Pack of wild skitterers, not the twins, attacked the compound at night. Brutus fought them off, lost a chunk of his ear in the process, but he protected us. After that, we were family. Mischief and mayhem. The domesticated skitterers were playing in their own section of the enclosure. They were smaller than Brutus, about the size of large dogs, with sleek bodies and intelligent eyes. One of them noticed us watching and chirped, a surprisingly melodic sound. They were abandoned cubs, Dr. Park explained. I found them near the crash site in month 2. Mother was probably killed in territorial disputes. We took them in, hand-raised them. They bonded with us completely. And Priscilla? I asked, spotting the glide serpent coiled on a warm rock. She just showed up one day and decided we were her people, Marcus said. Glide serpents are solitary, but apparently they will occasionally choose I do not know. A clan, a group. Anyway, she chose us. We feed her. She keeps the compound clear of smaller pests. Also, she is weirdly affectionate for a venomous reptile. As if on cue, Priscilla uncoiled and glided over to Maya, wrapping loosely around her shoulders. Maya did not even flinch, just reached up and gently stroked the serpent's scales. You are insane, Cole said. All of you. Completely insane. Probably, Maya agreed cheerfully, but we are alive and insane, which is better than dead insane. The tour was interrupted by a sound from beyond the compound, a melodic call rising and falling in complex patterns. The humans immediately perked up. That is Big Ears, Harris said. The Quillfin Elder. They are here for their weekly visit. You have weekly visits with the indigenous people, I said. because apparently my role in this whole situation was just to repeat increasingly absurd facts back to these humans. More like twice weekly, Maya corrected. They really like our pastries. We walked to the main gate. Harris pressed a button, some kind of intercom system they had rigged up, and called out a series of sounds that definitely were not any Federation language I recognized. The gate opened, and the Quilfin entered. They were remarkable creatures, bipedal, about 1.5 meters tall, with long ears that twitched independently. Their fur was a soft brown with white markings, and their faces had a gentle, intelligent quality. They wore simple clothing, woven from plant fibers and decorated with intricate beadwork. The one in front, presumably Big Ears, was slightly larger than the others and had gray around his muzzle. He made a sound, that same melodic calling, and Harris responded in kind. They were communicating, actually communicating, with what sounded like a reasonably complex language. Big Ears noticed me and Cole. His ears swiveled in our direction, and he made a questioning sound. Harris gestured to us. "Friends," he said in Federation Standard, then repeated it in what I assumed was the Quilfin language. "Rescue. From the sky." Big Ears approached me cautiously. He made a series of sounds, gesturing to the sky, then to me, then to Harris. The meaning was clear even without translation. He was asking if we were here to take the humans away. "Yes," I said slowly. "We are here to bring them home, to their people." Harris translated. Big Ears looked sad. He made a long, descending sound that conveyed disappointment. Then he turned to Harris and spoke for several moments, his paws moving expressively. "He says they will miss us." Harris translated. "We have been good neighbors, good teachers, good friends. He wants to know if we will come back." I looked at these humans, these impossible, ridiculous, amazing humans who had crashed on an alien world and somehow made friends with everyone. Predators, indigenous people, probably the planet itself at this rate. "That is not my decision to make," I said honestly, "but I will include his words in my report." The Quilfins spent an hour at the compound. Dr. Park served them pastries, some kind of sweet bread filled with local fruit. They ate with obvious pleasure, making happy chirping sounds. Maya showed them a new textile pattern she had been working on, and they critiqued her technique with the polite honesty of master craftspeople. It was surreal. Watching humans and an uncontacted indigenous species sitting together at mismatched tables in a cafe on a hostile world, sharing food and conversation like this, was the most normal thing in the universe. Before they left, Big Ears presented Harris with a gift. It was a woven tapestry, intricate and beautiful, showing the crashed ship surrounded by the buildings of the compound, with humans and Quilfin working together under a bright sun. Along the border were images of Brutus, the Skitterers, and Priscilla. "It is a memory piece," Harris explained, his voice thick with emotion. "They make them for important events, births, deaths, alliances. He made this for us, to remember our time here." Big Ears spoke again, and Harris translated. "He says we brought the sky to them, showed them there was more to the universe than this world, changed their understanding of existence. He says we are forever welcome in Quilfin territory. We are, I think the word translates to, Sky Family." I watched Big Ears and his group leave, calling farewells in their melodic language. The humans waved until the Quilfin disappeared into the forest. "Well," Maya said, wiping her eyes quickly, "that was not emotional at all. I am totally not crying. Are you crying?" "I am not crying. We are all crying a little bit," Dr. Park admitted. Over the next 2 days, I coordinated with Federation Command. The conversations were predictably difficult. "Commander, let me make sure I understand this correctly," Admiral Telvar said over the secure channel. "The survivors not only built a functional settlement, they also domesticated local fauna, established trade relations with an intelligent indigenous species, and conducted extensive scientific research." "That is correct, Admiral. And they did all this while maintaining complete psychological stability." "More than stable, Admiral. They are thriving. Their morale is excellent. They have established routines, social structures, and mutual support systems. Dr. Park's psychological evaluations show no signs of trauma or deterioration." There was a long pause. "This is going to cause a bureaucratic nightmare, Vex. First contact protocols, contamination concerns, the legality of the trade agreements, the ethics of domesticating protected species. With respect, Admiral. The humans were fighting for survival. Every regulation they bent or broke was in service of staying alive. And they succeeded. Not just survived, but created something remarkable. Another pause. Send me everything. Every report. Every piece of data. Every journal entry. I need to present this to the Council. This could change our entire approach to crash survival protocols. I spent the next day helping the humans prepare for extraction. They packed carefully, sorting through 6 months of accumulated possessions. What to bring, what to leave, what to preserve for future study. I wish we could bring Brutus, Marcus said sadly, watching the Kragoth sleep in his favorite sunny spot. He would love my apartment. Plenty of room. Nice view. Your apartment is in a space station, I reminded him. A 3-ton apex predator in a space station would end badly. Yeah, I know. Still gonna miss him, though. They had already said goodbye to the Quelfin. Big Ears and his entire extended family had come for a farewell ceremony. There had been singing, gift exchanges, and a lot of tears from both species. The Quelfin had promised to care for the animals and maintain the compound. They saw it as a sacred site now, a place where the sky had touched the earth. On the final evening, the humans threw a party. Not a sad goodbye party, but a celebration. They had survived. They had built something amazing. They were going home. Music played from a salvaged data pad. They danced, laughed, told stories about the worst moments and the best moments. They toasted with that excellent coffee, raising their cups to the compound, to the planet, to each other. To the Last Stop Cafe, Harris announced. Best coffee in the sector, as advertised. To Brutus, Micius, Mayhem, and Priscilla, Maya added. The weirdest found family anyone ever had. To Big Ears and the Quilfin, Dr. Park said, for accepting us as Sky family. To Tommy's engineering genius, David's record-keeping, Lisa's medical skills, Marcus's optimism, Maya's leadership, and whatever possessed Roger to think farming on an alien world was a good idea, someone else added, and everyone laughed. They looked at me then, these 8 humans who had done the impossible. To Commander Vex, Harris said, for actually showing up. We were starting to wonder. I raised my cup of coffee. To humanity, for proving once again that the universe has no idea what to do with you. They loved that, cheered and laughed and clinked their cups together. The next morning, we began the extraction. It took several trips to move everything. The humans insisted on taking samples, data, journals, gifts from the Quelfin. They took final readings, secured the compound, made sure everything was left in good condition. Brutus seemed to sense something was happening. He followed Marcus around, making worried sounds. The skitterers were agitated, chirping anxiously. Priscilla coiled tightly around Maya's arm. It is okay, Marcus whispered to Brutus, scratching the Kragoth's massive head. You are going to be okay. The Quelfin will take care of you. You are going to have so many friends, so much space to run. You are going to be fine. Brutus rumbled, low and sad. Maya gently unwound Priscilla from her arm, placing the serpent on her favorite warm rock. Be good. Keep hunting those pests. Stay beautiful, we will remember you. The hardest part was walking away, watching those 8 humans take one last look at the compound they had built, the life they had created. Some of them were crying openly now, others had tight jaws and distant eyes. On the ship they were quiet, exhausted emotionally. Even if they were physically fine, they settled into crew quarters, stowed their belongings, prepared for the jump to faster-than-light travel. Before we jumped, Harris came to the bridge. Commander, could we do one more thing? What do you need? Could we do a final pass over the compound? One last look? I adjusted our trajectory. We flew low over the valley, and there it was, the Last Stop Cafe. The gardens, the animal enclosures, the buildings they had constructed with their own hands. And standing in the clearing, looking up at the ship, was Brutus. The Kragoth raised his head and made a sound, a long howling call that we could hear even through the ship's hull. The skitterers joined in, their melodic chirping harmonizing with Brutus's deeper voice. In the distance I could hear the Quilfin responding, their calls carrying across the valley. It was a farewell song, a goodbye from one family to another. Okay, Maya said, her voice breaking. Okay. We can go now. The journey back took 3 weeks. The humans adapted to shipboard life easily. helping with tasks, sharing their coffee-making expertise with my crew, and slowly processing everything that had happened. They wrote reports. Hours and hours of reports. Everything they had learned, experienced, discovered. David's biological surveys filled an entire database. Tommy's engineering innovations were brilliant enough to warrant their own technical journal. Dr. Park's medical adaptations to limited resources became required reading for every Federation medical officer. And Maya, she wrote a manual, a survival guide. What to do when you crash on a hostile world, how to assess resources, establish safety, build shelter, make contact with indigenous people, domesticate local fauna. Every lesson they had learned, written down for the next crew that might need it. Probably never happen again, she said, showing me the finished document. The circumstances were unique. The planet was uniquely suited. We got lucky in a lot of ways. But if it saves one life, helps one crew survive, then it is worth documenting. When we finally reached Federation space, there was a reception waiting. News had spread about the stranded crew that built a civilization. Media from a dozen worlds wanted interviews. Scientists wanted data. The diplomatic corps wanted to discuss the Quilfin situation. The humans handled it with the same adaptability they had shown on Viridian 5. Patient, honest, humble about their achievements. They credited each other, the local resources, the Quilfin, even the domesticated predators. We just did what humans do, Harris said in one interview. We adapted. We worked together. We found a way. It is not special. It is just who we are. But it was special. The entire galaxy was starting to understand that about humans. Give them an impossible situation, and they will make it work. Strand them somewhere, and they will build a home, crash their ship, and 6 months later they will have a cafe. I attended the final debriefing with the humans before they returned to Earth. Admiral Telvar himself was there, along with several council members. This incident has raised numerous questions about protocol, the Admiral said, but it has also demonstrated remarkable resourcefulness and adaptability. The Federation is officially recognizing Viridian 5 as a protectorate world. The Quilfin will be offered technological development assistance, if they want it, under carefully managed first contact protocols. Your compound will be preserved as a historical site. And our 3-ton puppy, Marcus asked hopefully. The Admiral's expression was stern, but I caught a flicker of amusement. Your apex predator will remain on Viridian 5. However, we will establish a research station near your compound. Scientists will study the domestication process, and you will be welcome to visit under proper safety protocols. Marcus grinned. I can live with that. The scientific data you collected will be invaluable, the Admiral continued. Your methods, while unorthodox, proved effective. We are integrating your survival manual into all Federation training programs. You may have just saved countless lives. The humans looked at each other, a shared moment of pride and satisfaction. One last thing, the Admiral said. Viridian 5 needs an official designation for its indigenous species and notable locations.
You made first contact.
You have naming rights. Maya smiled. The Quilfin should keep their name. They told it to us. It is theirs. And the compound? The Admiral asked. Harris did not hesitate. The last stop cafe, because that is what it was. The last stop before the end, except it turned out to be a beginning instead. 3 months later I received a message from Maya. They were back on Earth, readjusting to normal life. Harris had made his daughter's graduation. Dr. Park was writing a book. Tommy was consulting with Federation engineers on adaptive technology. David was teaching xenobiology. Marcus was training service animals and making way too many jokes about his time with apex predators. And Maya, she had been recruited by the Federation Emergency Response Division. They wanted her to design new protocols, train crews in adaptive survival techniques. Apparently she was good at teaching people how to make the impossible possible. Thanks for the rescue. Her message ended. Even though we probably would have been fine for another 6 months. Maybe a year. Possibly indefinitely. But it is good to be home. Also, we are working on getting permission for a return visit to Viridian 5. Brutus is probably wondering where we went. Cannot leave family hanging. I sent back a reply. Anytime you need rescue, just send a beacon. Though knowing humans, you will probably have built a starship by the time we arrive. Her response was immediate. Do not tempt us with a good time, Commander. I sat back in my chair looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was a planet with a cafe, a compound, a community of indigenous people who knew about the wider galaxy, and 3 domesticated predators who probably still wondered where their humans had gone. And somewhere else, 8 humans were living their lives, carrying the memory of 6 months when they crashed on an alien world and decided that surviving was not enough. They had to thrive. That is, humanity. That is what they do. You cannot stop them. You can barely slow them down. You crash their ship, and they open a cafe. You strand them on a hostile world, and they make friends with the things trying to eat them. The galaxy is never going to be ready for humans. But you know what? That is probably fine. Ready or not, humans are here, and they are bringing coffee.